when the truth is being delivered to someone, but not taking into consideration how that's going to land, how that's going to feel for the other person, or whether or not they even asked for that or are open to that. So again, this is one that I actively work on because I was called a know-it-all as a child for this reason. I'm sure for other reasons too, but I did this a lot. And so I think what this causes in the other person is that they will be like bracing for impact in the conversation rather than actually being present with it and feeling it and integrating and feeling more connected. So this one, again, I think these are often well-intentioned. I think that keeping the atmosphere comfortable is easier for people than addressing things that are painful. Hey there, and welcome to the Reclamation Room. I'm Ashana, and I'm so glad you're here. This is a space for women reclaiming themselves after narcissistic abuse. If you've ever felt like you were too much, not enough, or both at the same time, you're in the right place. I created this podcast because I know what it's like to lose yourself in overgiving, overperforming, and still wondering why it never felt like love. I've walked through trauma, toxic relationships, and the long road of self-reclamation, and I'm here to walk with you. In this podcast, we'll explore what it means to come home to yourself after the confusion and chaos of narcissistic abuse. Some episodes will be solo, others will include guest interviews. All of them will be honest, grounded, and deeply compassionate. So, whether you're just realizing what you've lived through, or you've been on this path and you're ready for the next layer of your healing, you are welcome here. This is not about perfection. This is about reclamation. Okay, welcome back to the Reclamation Room. I know I keep telling you guys that we're going to have season 2 coming soon, and then it just hasn't happened yet. So bear with me, but you get another solo episode in the meantime. So today we're going to be having a really fun conversation. Well, it was fun for me to have in my head. Hopefully it's fun for you, said out loud. But we're going to be talking about why some conversations will leave you literally feeling more clearer and more like yourself. And some conversations can have you second guessing your reality, feeling like you're crazy and feeling disconnected from self. A lot of times that is what will have us blaming ourselves when we've been in these painful or abusive relationship dynamics. So naturally, this episode is going to explore what I've looked at as kind of these silent agreements that we make with people. And when they land in an aligned way, they actually create emotional safety. They allow for honesty, which you're going to hear, I believe, is a deep sign of respect. And hopefully it's going to help you naturally recognize the way that you're showing up for people in time and really embodying the person that you want to be. This episode started with someone asking me a question, actually for a marketing class, that asked me how what I do as a reclamation coach or mentor is different from how other people do it. I really struggled to put this into words, but I kind of shifted the answer around in my head and I decided to tap into the feedback that I've gotten from people, because what I do is talking, is listening, is connecting with people in real time. And so I just asked myself, what have people told me that shows that they're feeling what's different about me? And it's not generally that people compliment me for like advice that I'm giving them, because I genuinely try not to do that. It's actually the experience of being in space with me. And a lot of times it's, I felt seen, I felt heard, I felt like I was allowed to feel that way for the first time. And so this really got me thinking, what is it that's different in conversations with people that does allow us to feel safer and calmer and clearer? And then conversations with other people leave us feeling like we're crazy, like we don't want to be in conversation with that person again. And a lot of times we keep doing it anyway. So I wanted to dig into that. And I recognized that a big piece of this safety and conversation for me is intuition, for one, but it's also a deep sense of honesty, where when a person does bring something to me and they want to have a conversation, I'm not sugarcoating things. I'm not saying, well, yeah, I know, but that person was in the wrong because X, Y, and Z. I'm genuinely saying, okay, yeah, I can see where that was uncomfortable. And I'm hearing a sense of shame or whatever they're bringing to the table because maybe you didn't act the best way that you wanted to act. But here's the truth that I'm seeing. And this is just my perspective. So if you see it a different way, like, let's open the floor. Let's talk about that. And I think that that's really intimidating at first because I don't think a lot of people interact that way. I think that a lot of people have been kind of conditioned over time to believe that their perception is wrong or to believe that someone else holds the actual events the way that they really happened. And so, in order for us to feel connected to these people, we've had to kind of override our sense of self and live in a world that doesn't feel honest and doesn't feel true. So, I realized in going over this question that I genuinely don't want to recreate that dynamic with people in the conversations that I'm having. And of course, me being me, I dug into why. Why do I not want that to happen? And it's because as a child, a lot of times there was this sense of I was lied to. The truth wasn't told to me, or it was told to me in a completely twisted way, usually to get me to believe someone's story or to act a certain way. And that felt like such an affront to my personhood. It felt like I wasn't being respected enough as a person to be trusted with information, for one, but also it was kind of a slap in the face to my intuition. Like, you're just a kid, you don't know anything, and so I can take advantage of you and I can be dishonest with you in this way. And just remembering that now, like the way that that felt as a child, it was so powerless and it felt so disrespectful and it caused anger. I was angry when that happened, rightfully so. But of course, we hear anger covers over deep sadness. So what was I sad about? I was sad that there wasn't this connection or this attunement with this person enough for them to realize that they were hurting me by doing that. And so I've carried that forward with me now. I'm not trying to improvise in order to maintain connection with that person. I'm trusting them with a very vulnerable thing. I'm being really honest about my feelings, about my opinions, my perspectives, and I'm trusting you enough to give you this and then to offer the same in return. You can be just as honest with me, and I'm not going to judge you for it. Of course, we may not agree, and that's totally okay, but it's still a safe space that you can bring that. So this to me really like came to a discussion with myself about honesty and why honesty is so important. And so I kind of started to recognize that based on my prior episode about expectations, which if you haven't heard that one, I believe it's expectations and the quiet agreements that we carry or something like that. I'll tag it in the show notes. But this kind of is a spinoff of that because I think that when we're in conversation with other people, we do make these almost silent agreements that we carry forward with us. And I think the first one that's really important to me to carry as a person, and let this land how it will. Like, if you're not this way, totally fine. Maybe get curious with what your silent agreements are. But my first one is that I really, really genuinely do not want to take ownership or authorship over someone else's experience. And this is something that I'm actively cultivating in my life because I've noticed that we as people a lot of times will quickly jump to try to like interpret what the other person is saying. We want to finish their sentence. We want to show them that we understand them. And of course, our mind is jumping to all these different conclusions because we bring our own experiences to the table. That's how we make sense of things. That's how we interact in the world, right? Like a big form of communication with people a lot of times is, oh, hey, me too. I experienced something like that too. Oh, that reminds me of this thing that happened to me. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think that we can sometimes take that a step further and it can feel more like advice, but as like a guideline of this is how it should be. And I think that a big piece of this for me in letting go of that and letting go of trying to tell everyone how things should be is just staying curious. Always, always curiosity. Because if someone else is naming my reality for me, in the past, I've been a people pleaser. I've been that person that would say, okay, yes, I'll disconnect from my own reality and then I'll fit into the one that you're giving me because I want that connection with you. And so I don't want people to do that to me, which means that I need to not do that to people. So I'm going to stay more curious. I'm going to let them own their own experience and speak it in their words. Let them say how that feels and then go from there. And then silent agreement number 2 that I think I have with people, but I don't think I ever actively agreed to this. I think this is just how I process things, is that I try my best to state what is actually happening and not just what I'm hearing or what is being said in the conversation. And so if we are talking and I notice that there's a tension that comes up, or there's a bit of like deflection that comes up, or even caretaking that comes up, I try to name that also. And I try to say what I feel is happening in, like, I feel this right now. This is what this feels like for me. And my hope is that that allows the other person to know that they can do the same. Because there are times when I feel uncomfortable in a conversation and I'll try to kind of get out of the vulnerability of it, or I will deflect with a joke. And I think that when I disrupt that process and say, hang on, wait a minute, I'm feeling really uncomfortable right now. My chest is kind of tightening. I'm kind of getting annoyed, and I don't really think it's about you. I think that I'm bringing something else to the conversation right now. So either I'm going to take a second and figure out a better way to say this, or like, I just want you to know that that's what I'm experiencing right now. This is how I'm showing up. I think it's giving that other person permission to name their experience too, or at least I hope so. But I also really want the other person to know that if they are aware of any kind of tension that's happening or any kind of deflection or fear that's happening, they don't have to sit in that alone. I want them to know that I'm also invested in the conversation enough to be able to name difficult things, even if it's uncomfortable. So then a third silent agreement that I believe I bring in conversation with people is that I try to tell the truth, because I shared that honesty is very important to me. But I try to do it in a way that's not confrontational and not bossy, but more questioning, more permission giving. Not that I'm the one that can give permission to someone, but just saying, like, hey, I wonder if this might be true right now, or this feels true for me. Feel free to share what feels true for you. Because I really want people to know that, like, deep, ugly truths and beautiful, heartbreaking truths can exist without shame. And it's okay if people feel shame, but I want them to know you are more than capable of being in reality right now, and you don't have to carry shame with you into this space with me. I don't want to feel like either of us is having to protect the other from our truth. And I also want to respect the other person enough to know that you also don't have to collapse under the weight of it on your own. I'm here. So some of these are not so much tangible things that you can put into words. It's more of a felt experience. But I feel like the deep thinkers and the deep feelers here are going to hear this and think, yep, okay, I'm familiar with that because I do that too. When people do this for me, it feels really safe for me. And so I want to carry that moving forward. But I also want to just acknowledge here that sometimes there's conversations with people that not necessarily are, they're not bad communicators or they're bad people. Maybe there's just a dynamic that's kind of feeling unsafe or disruptive. And I want to hold space for that because it's real and it happens. And a lot of times those of us who feel these things get written off as too sensitive, or now we have an entire genre of highly sensitive persons. And I don't think that it's something that's written off into an entirely different category of people. I think that each of us have our things that's just what's normal for us. That's how we are navigating things. And that doesn't mean that it has to be a fixed point that we can never ever move from. But I think that the first step in a lot of this personal growth and self-love journey that we're on is self-awareness. And then, of course, we bring in the self-compassion and the self-validation and the self-respect. But I think it starts with awareness. And I think that giving ourselves permission to be the way that we are and let that be okay for a moment, removing the shame, is a big step in this process. So I just want to validate for a moment that it is absolutely a real thing when we're in conversation with someone and these like safety agreements, as I've called them, are not being made. And that can feel really violating. It can feel really disorienting. So I want to just speak to a few of those so that someone listening may have the space to exhale for a moment and say, yes, this makes sense. Finally, there's a space for this. So the first one that I have here is when it feels like your reality is being rewritten or overwritten. And I just want to say this is a really fast track to not trusting yourself, because a lot of us being loving, we will be like, okay, I'll go with that reality, because sometimes it's wrapped up in a package that says, I really care about you and I want to take care of you. So this could be, are you sure you're not overthinking that? Or I'm sure that's not what they meant. They love you. You're just really stressed out right now. You haven't been sleeping well. Don't forget you do have a new baby. Maybe it wasn't that big of a deal. And I think that a lot of times this is addressing the experience itself and kind of writing that off and not really addressing the meaning or the feeling behind the experience. So I don't think this is so much of about a disagreement of what's right and what's wrong. I think it's just this internal sense of disorientation that over time erodes self-trust, even when the people are meaning well. So this is very real. The next one being that the listener is taking authorship over someone's experience or someone's story. And this is kind of the flip side of what I shared earlier that I actively work on because I've done this. And a lot of times this can look like the conversation becoming insightful or having these one-liner moments or this like, yes, I understand what you're going through, rather than just being with someone and letting them know that you're there. And so this could look like, labeling people's feelings for them or telling them what their reaction actually means. Like, oh, well, this means that you're triggered by this, and that's probably happening because of this, this, and this. Because I know you, right? And I'm very close to you, and I'm sure that that's what this is. Or we could start connecting it to these psychology concepts really quickly that it's easy to categorize and put into a box with a label, but it's not so easy for the person who's sitting there experiencing the thing, feeling like they're being observed or labeled rather than just sat with. So I think here, this loses a sense of being understood, being felt. Another one that is a silent agreement that can be kind of painful is that something that feels really obvious to us goes completely unnamed or unacknowledged. And I grew up with this one a lot. This is loneliness, even when we're having conversations, even when we're all sitting at the dinner table together. Because if I'm feeling the tension or the hurt or the disconnect or the avoidance or the anger and nobody's talking about it, to me, it's like having a mask on and no one ever really knowing what's underneath. So we never even really know the other person. We're getting to know a mask, and the mask doesn't move. It doesn't smile, right? So we just have this same experience over time. And it just causes this sense of like dullness and numbness to me that's unbearable. And I think this can also manifest as someone who is in pain but learns to laugh while they're describing their pain, or to write it off with humor, which I have also done because we were so used to things being unacknowledged. This also led to me apologizing all the freaking time. I apologized for everything, but I never got a, hey, it's okay. There was something that happened here, but it's okay. We can move through it. It's like I was constantly trying to get the other person to acknowledge what happened, and it just wasn't going to happen. The last one that I have here, and this is not by any means an exhaustive list. I know there's probably so many more that people could come up with here, but this one feels important to me. This is when something that is truth becomes labeled as like too harsh or not safe to say, simply because people are going to disagree with it, or it's going to start something or open a can of worms that we then can't close. And I think this also includes when the truth is being delivered to someone, but not taking into consideration how that's going to land, how that's going to feel for the other person, or whether or not they even asked for that or are open to that. So again, this is one that I actively work on because I was called a know-it-all as a child for this reason. I'm sure for other reasons too, but I did this a lot. And so I think what this causes in the other person is that they will be like bracing for impact in the conversation rather than actually being present with it and feeling it and integrating and feeling more connected. So this one, again, I think these are often well intentioned. I think that keeping the atmosphere comfortable is easier for people than addressing things that are painful. But I also think that over time, these behaviors, these protective mechanisms, they are hurtful. They do become other forms of lashing out at people or avoiding or stonewalling. You know, we have all these names for things that we do. And I think that some of these branch off into forms of manipulation and forms of gaslighting. And I think that having conversations like this one can help us start to kind of unravel that thread and say, I don't want to take part in these things anymore. I actually want to take part in conversations where silent agreements are spoken aloud and we're showing them in our behavior, we're showing them in our tone, and we're showing up and speaking as the person that we want to be based on what we value. I mean, you've learned about me in this episode. I value truth, I value autonomy, I value dignity, and I value choice greatly. And so it was really kind of emotional for me to look back and recognize that I didn't really have those things growing up. And so I formed some of these negative characteristics, negative communication styles, and I'm working on them now. So something that I really want everyone to take away from this episode and remember is that it doesn't have to be some massive turning point where we like completely turn around the way that we've been talking to people and be totally different. This could also be a moment where we look into the things that we already do, the ways that we already do hold space in an authentic way, and to notice those things and to celebrate them in ourselves and step forward with the knowledge of, yes, I value this, this, and this, and I'm embodying that. You know, it doesn't have to be, I'm this type of person. It can be, I really value honesty. And sometimes I do drop the ball, but this is how I want to be. This is how I want to show up. So if you're listening and you're like, this is great, I want to kind of dig in deeper to what this means for me, a couple of things that you could jot down or just think about after conversations with people. What do they often come back and share that they feel more able to do or feel that you held space for? In what ways did they feel held and seen and respected? And then you could also ask yourself, what kind of dishonesty or unacknowledgement drains you immediately and is extremely felt for you? And recognize the areas where you show up in the opposite way. And then you can ask yourself, what are the things that you naturally protect in conversation? Is it important to you that conversations are accurate? Are they fair? Is there emotional safety? Is there clarity? Do you both walk away with a sense of hope? Or is it important to you that you both stay grounded? Really looking at what a good conversation feels like to you and then embodying that moving forward, because that's what you want back from the world. And so, yeah, we want to show up with that in the world. And then the last one is whenever someone relaxes around you, and you can notice this, you can feel it, ask, what is it that left the room? What kind of pressure did they just let go of, if you could put it into words? These things are leading you to your specific brand of magic in the world. This is the kind of space that you hold and show up with in the world that sets you apart from other people. And no, it might not be easy to put into words. I really struggled with this for that marketing webinar, but it was really helpful for me, and it led me to this episode, because I do think that a lot of times these small things that happen under the surface are very, very big to people who feel deeply. So in closing here, you know, my answer to that question isn't something as simple as like, well, I hold space for all the things that people are going through. My answer is that I try to really stay true to my values in conversation with people, in interactions with people that go beyond words. And my hope is that people can feel the consistency of that over time, because a pattern that's showing up for me in episodes and in my client work and even in my day job is that stability and reality and consistency are all key pieces here. Like, what are we really facing here? Do I feel grounded and rooted in my sense of self in what I'm facing? And is this feeling of stability or improvement or growth or calm or whatever we're going for here, is it growing over time? Is there consistency in that I can track and say, yep, this is the kind of person that I want to be in the world? And if not, that's okay too, because for many years I was the complete opposite of that and had no idea what was going on. So my hope with these episodes is that they kind of make some semblance of sense for people who have felt misunderstood for a long time. I hope that they can put words to what some people may have been experiencing. And I hope that they can help open up more curiosity and more conversation over these experiences. So if this resonated for you, if you want to dig deeper, or even if you want to give feedback, you are welcome to email me, of course, anytime. My email will be in the show notes, but you're also welcome to join our weekly women's call. It's every Tuesday evening. It's on Zoom. You don't have to have your camera on. You can even have your microphone muted and just show up in the chat or just listen. That's totally fine too. But I do have further containers wherein people can work one-on-one with me, go through guided modules of programs that I've created, and just really dig in deeper to what I'm talking about here. Because I think that the self-love journey, this growth and learning journey, I think it is something that we're constantly doing, but I don't think it's something that needs to have some end point we're setting our courses for and saying, yes, this is the point when I'll be good enough. This is the point when I'll be done healing and everything will be better. Every day is an opportunity for things to feel better. And I genuinely believe that it actually starts within you. So I hope this episode was helpful. I promise we will actually get season 2 up and running soon. I have to film a trailer, an intro, all the things behind the scenes. So stay tuned for that. We're going to drop a couple other guest episodes here soon, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for spending time in the Reclamation Room. Be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if this supported you, consider sharing it or leaving a review. You're not alone, and your reclamation is sacred.